Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Folks filing in. Everyone across the internet. Welcome to an amazing webinar today. Let people file in slowly. Got some incredible guests to share. Frankly, a lot more sales knowledge, expertise, and a lot of tactical and I think practical ways to combat some of the challenges we're facing in sales around sales performance today. So thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to give it a couple minutes as folks file in. If you don't mind, as you join, please feel free to post where you're joining from, what part of the world you're in. It's always cool to see. I am in sunny, beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee today. Ray, Craig, where are you guys? I know, but the audience may not know.
I'm in sunny, beautiful Foster City, California.
Woo.
Yeah, I know. Big
But
time.
your view is on point, Craig. So
Yeah,
it's the nicest view
right.
in Culver City. That's awesome. I'm out in the hills in Redmond, outside of Seattle. So also a little bit gloomy, but we have hope for some sunshine today.
Ray, I meant to ask you this a couple weeks ago. What's the map? What are the different shades on the map behind you?
You know, I wish that they were really indicative of like all the countries I've traveled or some better story. It's just for relief and to make it a little bit more interesting to look at. So it was puzzle pieces though. When I got it, I didn't realize it was going to take like a whole afternoon to put up there.
I think you have to lie going forward. I think you have to lie about what the different shades mean. Or I was like trying to like zoom in on your square and figure out like what's what. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got Richmond, Virginia, Denver, Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome. Give it another minute or so. Craig, your whiteboard is sparkling, whereas I'm realizing in hindsight mine is horrific. It looks like a beautiful mind, and it looks just not great. And now that I'm seeing it on Zoom,
What does it say about me that mine's empty? Is that bad? I don't know.
it's
I mean, actually,
your desk is not cluttered. You have a plant that looks alive. I think it's a lot of positives. Is what I'm feeling.
well, while we're talking about it, then let's discuss. One, I work in a place which is, a financial organization, right? You kind of forget that with the VC, so inclined with tech. So I nervously erase my whiteboard all the time.
Yep.
And then number two is that is a replacement plan because my original plan, which was supposed to be a great indoor plan, but it was dark and a little droopy. I'm like, I need something with a little life. So I got the light green, I've been literally playing with the places to put it and put it there, and it's thriving. So there you go. But I am going to move my Macy's return here box just so I'm in like full looking good mode.
Yeah, I mean the plant looks like it's thriving. Is what it feels like from here.
There's a lot to learn in B2B sales and marketing. I'm going to do a post on 18 things I learned from moving my plant around. Yeah, it'll be awesome. Did you guys see that guy that put the marriage proposal and tied it back to B2B, put it on LinkedIn and just got destroyed? I mean, destroyed. Like
it's yeah, I know that's not why we're here today, but Craig, I'd like to do and you can pick whatever time is convenient for you, West Coast. Can we do an entire session where we just make fun of those posts now? Because like whatever life event tragedy that someone then turns into like, here's what I learned about, moving from proposal stage to procurement stage I'm over it. I'm over all of it.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to do that. I mean, we could do a thing too. We could give out awards, right? Because there's been there's some bad. So there'd be like a Rotten Tomatoes or whatever type of thing.
I like that.
There's some
Yeah.
good. There's good, you know.
Yeah, there's fresh. There's fresh. And there's a couple different ways people are doing it. All right, that's perfect level of banter. I think we got 5 minutes of banter in. We got folks joining.
I'm all
I'll pull the
banter.
reins back. All right, I'm gonna kick us off and get us into a little bit of housekeeping plus little data from our audience today. If you're here, whether you're on our Zoom or you're seeing us on LinkedIn, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you're seeing this later on, appreciate you joining and checking out the video. This is a webinar with my friends Ray and Craig. We're going to get intros from them in a second, but this is how coaching makes sales excellence attainable. And if you're following the LinkedIn cycle, Twitter sphere, or X sphere right now, all you're seeing is stats like this one. Sorry, the amount of people who are hitting quota, who are hitting their target, who are reaching their goals as sellers is, in my experience, at an all-time low. And I think there's a variety of different reasons that is happening. But 53% of folks saying their reps are missing quota last year is big. I'll do a quick any reaction, or do you guys believe this? Ray, Craig, is this what you guys see in probably not the companies you work with directly, but companies that you guys hear about?
Well, I think it's pervasive, right? And we'll talk a little bit about why that's happening, maybe, but it is challenging. And when we look at some of the headwinds, it's difficult, and we haven't cracked the code yet. So yeah, I think that resonates with what we're seeing as well. How about you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, you hear stories. The thing I'm sitting here trying to rationalize is most of us pulled our quotas back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like normally, I guess, this is kind of a raw number. You either hit your number or you don't. But like also just like in terms of us like understanding that sales, those that hit it was a highly adjusted number likely. And I'm not sure how they
Yeah,
asked. It says their rep, so it's like their team. Like, I mean, every sales team has, a massive number of those that don't hit, and you still sort of hit the number as a team. But so but there is the nuance to me is that you miss that everyone's adjusted their quota, so it's like those that hit probably they still hit, but it was likely something lower than where we'd want to be typically. So yeah, no, that
I
makes
think there.
this makes sense.
Jeff is actually he's agreeing with you in the comments, and he said his team even dialed it down. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing you bring up, Craig, is that everyone right sized them, right? Like everyone has right sized their targets or kind of like retrenched their targets. Um, and just to kind of add into that, this is great data from the folks at SBI and Ray, your group. Seller productivity is a persistent challenge. I think at various levels, all three of these are major headwinds that we see, whether it is deal size. And like, I mean, over 2/3 of folks saying that deal size is flat or shrinking. Maybe a lucky 1/3 out there where it's increasing. Deal velocity, and this is one that our buddy Jason Lepkin at Sasser has talked about a lot. It's slowing down once again. About 2/3 of folks saying deals are slowing down. I'd actually be shocked if it's not more than that. And then I know we're going to talk about this as well in the talent portion of our conversation, but the characterization of productivity and whether that is anecdotal or whether that is with real data is very interesting. But almost 70% of folks thinking that their team is less productive or their sellers are less productive. Really, really interesting. I know we have a couple questions, and we'll throw up a poll for folks. 2 questions, I think, at once. And this gets to be anonymous. So, let us know as we kind of frame this conversation out. How did your team perform in 2024 or so far in 2024? I think there's kind of three versions there. And then also, what was the biggest hurdle? And I think, whether that is discovery taking a lot longer, challenge actually, aligning what you're selling to the buyer needs, Skills, this is a huge one. I think we have a whole new generation of sellers out there. Their skills are, as we've seen, a lot of times lacking or less than what we expect. And then a couple others that I'd love to hear the data on this or see what we got as far as attendees today. While folks are filling that out, I love our guests, Craig and Ray. If you guys could just do like the quick intro about yourselves and your background, I think that'd be amazing to kind of put this in perspective. Ray, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm Ray Makela. I run the talent and training division and business here at SBI. So I was the partner and CEO at Sales Readiness Group for about 12 years. We became part of SBI in July, which has been a really exciting transition and integration for us, and essentially to take on the training business for the SBI client base. And it's been a fantastic combination of, the go-to-market strategy, consulting, and talent consulting, coupled with the curriculum that we can offer and the frontline manager development and training that we bring to that business. And I've been in and around sales and marketing for the better part of my career, starting at Accenture and then realizing that to go anywhere, you needed to sell. And then I ran sales and marketing at a regional IT consulting firm here in the Northwest for about 10 years. And yeah, excited to talk about the topics and share some of the information and insights we have today.
Awesome. Craig.
Yes. By the way, can I just give you the ultimate alpha move? This is a good tip for everyone. Have a profile pic that makes you look like you're massively taller than everyone else on the panel. I mean, it is unbelievable because I mean,
look how close you are to that. Look how close you are to the top line there. Like you're like 6'8".
I mean, 14 years in the NBA should say, tell you all you need to know. Anyway, so yes, I'm very excited to be here. I'm currently I'm the Chief Platform Officer at Scale Venture Partners. And my team's job is to help the portfolio and all of technology, frankly, either build or enable them to build, design, or optimize their go-to-market machines. And so that's what I do. But I got that experience. I founded a company called Topo, which was around for 8 years. It was, I think, my claim to fame. I don't know. You might say the Funnelholic blog was, but anyway, it was there. We studied the world's fastest growing companies and created a research business around that and got bought by Gartner. I spent 2.5 years as a distinguished analyst at Gartner in the sales group. And so, I think I have some chops here. I'll learn a lot from Ray and Brian in the group today, but I appreciate being here and hopefully I can add some value besides like my room makeup and other funny things. Maybe I'll just be the humor guy. I'll be like the. Go ahead.
Was distinguished like italicized in the in like quoted. The email signature?
It's like Craig Rosenberg, VP, distinguished analyst. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, this is great. And for everyone out there, I'm Brian Trautschold. I'm the co-founder and COO at Ambition. We are a sales management software, sales coaching software. So this is near and dear to us and our clients. Try to do not product placement, but it's been great to get to know Ray over the past couple of weeks. I've had the pleasure of knowing Craig for years and years since the Topo days, and so it's good to it's awesome to have you guys here. We're going to kind of cover a quad of topics really quickly. I'll get into the results, and I don't think this will surprise anyone who put their who submitted on the survey, but about 80% of folks said they fell short of their target, either missed significantly or just barely did not miss. Only 10-15% hit. And as far as the hurdle, this is really interesting because I think it's kind of a mixed bag across the board. But one, gaps in discovery and core selling process was the lead, which I think is interesting because I don't think it has ever been harder to, kind of cross the chasm from like you think this is a great ICP buyer, you think it's a great target, to getting them into a real a true buying cycle. There's maybe a lot of people who are window shopping, but then there's not a lot of people who are willing to commit and go buy. And so, as we get through these topics, kind of like I said, 4 topics that we think really will drive the results for your sales organization. I hope that these are tactical. I hope that you guys can take something from this, take something from Ray and Craig, implement it or surface that in your organization. But we will riff on these. We'll kind of have a couple guides and some data about it. And if you do have questions or you have thoughts, please jump in. As I see some folks are already adding, like Angela, folks scared to pick up the phone. Hey, me too. I get it. So how to outperform sales target. 4 dimensions that we're going to talk about through insights, adaptability, talent, and automation, which kind of spans the whole gamut of those. Really quickly, and I'm noticing that there's some comments in there right now. Ray, Craig, when you look at the 4, ambition, we sit in like the automation world. What box are you like, hey, this is something you have to get right? You've got to lean into this dimension.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of our charter and underlying, we're going to get into the talent a bit more, but I think these are all definitely related when we think about, are we bringing insights to our customers that resonate and that are interesting to them and adapting appropriately? But what we know is our performance is going to live and die by the talent. And really, do we have the right people in the right roles, and are they doing the right things? So we're going to, talk about how to enable them, and certainly all of these come together when we talk about what the frontline sellers and frontline managers are doing. So yeah, I think they're actually really good categories for us to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like them. Like I get this. I was also in the business of creating frameworks and rubrics for years. But like, one thing that it doesn't scream. So I think all these things are important from a platform perspective. But like, if you look at the data we just captured, so we asked everyone in question 2, like there was a mix of like sort of big things that were leading questions towards things like automation, et cetera. But like the number one thing was gaps in discovery and core selling. And then you look at Amy's comment in the chat, it's like scared to pick up the phone. There's this tactical thing that sales leaders are picking up on, like how the hand-to-hand combat is taking place. Now, these are all things that support it, but like it is important to call out that like one of the thing we are in, I mean, I would say this platform will allow you to support what needs to happen today, which is like a reevaluation, right? Then rebuild, then reinforcement of how you sell and what happens, right? From a hand-to-hand combat perspective, which, when you talk to people, they don't, that's like one of the big things they bring up, and the data tells us that right here. So like, I know that this would support it, but just like, there is this thing that's screaming from the rooftops. If you think about the vast majority, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in a conversation, I want to talk big, yet people right now are really worried about all the small, like how the small adds up and how it affects us hitting our number. So that's just like, I would just say, of course, this platform allows us to get there. And when we talk about coaching and talent, et cetera, like these things will come to light. But like, I just say, like, if there was an exclamation point or there was something on the top, which is just very tactical, and that seems to be a topic everyone wants to talk about, with me at least.
I appreciate you saying that, because the one that, like, I think that we've gone through, and we'll talk about how these kind of section by section, but I keep kind of framing up, there's been such a radical change in how we sell, or the model that we sell through. Sorry, I didn't mean to move that, guys. Over the last, call it, depending on industry, it can go back 6 quarters. Like we've seen this in different pockets of our customer base, as like different industries and different segments have gone through layoffs and rifts, or their customer prices are going way down. And I think the adaptability of the sales process and how people are reaching out, like people talking about picking up the phone, like it is all changing really quickly, and the organizations that can adapt and really drive the ability of their teams to be really comfortable changing their process. The way it used to work is no longer the way it's working. Okay, great. We still have to go perform. We still have to go execute. So I think that's the one that
Yeah.
stands out for me.
Brian,
Um,
if I could just build on that too, because I think it's really interesting going back to why sales is challenging. And we talked about deals are getting longer and there's some issues there. It really is harder. I mean, we know there are more people involved, but they're also transient buyers. It's one of the things we're studying.
yeah,
Stakeholders coming in and out that, all of a sudden they show up and we don't know. And also this idea of resetting, like we get to the finish line, it's like, oh, we're going to reevaluate this, right? So we take a step back. And those are areas where we have to be adaptable, right? Our sellers have to be able to understand those signals and respond to them. And we'll talk about how coaching comes into play there. But I think it's a super important point that the sellers of today need to be able to read what's going on and translate their solution right into what the customer actually wants at the time, not a preformed package, right, that they're going to market with every time. So anyway, yeah, I think that's a really important insight.
yeah, that's great, right? And I'm gonna frame some of the insight side up, because I think you can measure this, and I think the as leaders, as sales leaders, revenue leaders who are hopefully on this or listening to this in the future, I think there's been this big shift, and our marketing team who helped put this together, like reference, like people who, if you follow TikTok, or maybe if you're a Reels person like myself, there's all of these trends on what's in, what's out, and I think we've seen this on even how people are measuring or creating the right KPIs to be tracking in their organization, and what level those KPIs sit. I'd say for, like I said, probably more like 4 to 6 quarters on at least LinkedIn, you're seeing this constant stream of content about the end of predictable revenue, the predictable revenue Aaron Ross book of, like, it's all going to be this fixed process of you make 100 calls, you set X number of meetings, you create this many opportunities. And that's kind of the old way of you make this many dials, you get this many meetings, etc. And I think now we're moving into this qualitative or quality over just the quantity side. And we've got some suggestions here. And Ray, I'm going to kick it to you to kind of talk through, what have you seen coming in as far as what people need to be measuring, as well as what can they glean from measuring that data?
Yeah, and I think starting with, I'll challenge a little bit. I don't think anything on the left-hand side is out, right? I mean, I won't tell a revenue
True.
leader, hey, you shouldn't track, the number of meetings you're having, but it's not enough, right? What we need to do is we need to be looking at the behaviors. And we even heard that, early on as a comment, like my reps don't want to pick up the phone. And,
Mm-hmm.
when we're thinking about, well, why is that? What's behind that? I think that was Angela's comment. And so we need to be thinking about the behaviors that lead to, do they have the skills? Do they have the motivation? And what's happening on the right-hand side that the frontline manager can coach to? So are they inspecting it? Do they have the data they need to bring those insights to the conversation? So it's not just a judgment saying, hey, you're not doing very well, but saying, well, let's look at the last month. Let's aggregate and analyze this information. Now let's have a coaching conversation about your call reluctance, right? You're not picking up the phone
Yeah.
because you're not very good at it. And I wouldn't say it that way, right? But there's a reluctance because they don't have the skills that they need to be proficient. Let's practice that. That's a coachable skill. And then now maybe we have an afternoon where we hammer the phones together and we'll go, back to the old fashioned call center focus. Anyway, so I think there's a lot we can do to start measuring and looking at those behaviors that are the leading indicators of whether they're getting the outcomes we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Craig, you want to add something?
No, I mean, I would agree. Like, I wonder if, and we uh, talked about this, like everything on the screen, like it still makes sense. Like you could do, like you might, if I were, now that I'm sort of taking this all in, like the left is, you can call it activity metrics, KPIs. And I know that, like, for example, in Ambition, you can track that. You know what I mean? Like we can set
Oh yeah.
OKRs against that. but then it's like ends is really outcome driven activities, right? Which is like, uh, because what you said, the setup to this sort of sets up what I'm talking about, which is like, nobody's denying you got to make the number of dials. I mean, Amy would probably tell us you're crazy, right? I'm just looking at her chat, right? I need these guys to dial, right? So like, but we should try. I mean, you track that in, like you should look at it, right? But like
Right.
what you're saying is like in predictable revenue, the number of dials equaled something no matter what. So you would
Right.
say if I did 100, I get this amount of connects would lead to this amount of deals, and that's where we broke, right? So what you're saying is like, no, you're going to make the dials, but like, how do we turn that into business? Which, if you look at your opening metrics, that's the issue, right? And so that's why on the ends, there's some like really important things that drive us towards better outcomes in the end. So that, we might think about, I know we're doing the TikTok thing, which by the way, I just hope that my cuts on TikTok work out. But yeah, you can think about it that way. Like, for me, like just, in my world, I want to know the number of stage 2 opportunities. Like if they're not driving that stuff, if you think about no, we didn't ask it, but one of the key issues today is pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to know that. But then like, I love your ends, which is like, are we coaching to outcomes? Because you can't just say, like you said, if you get this amount of opportunities that's coming through, like we're going to have to fight each one through to figure out how we win. And so anyway, that
Well,
would be my take.
yeah, and I'll try to clarify what I see, and I think I think about these. We used to have at least, and not everyone's in the same game, like the predictable revenue, which was for lack of a better term, it was like the Bible for how a lot of these companies were building their sales model, and it was this linear model, to your point, Craig, where it was like you put this in, you get this, you get this, you get this, and you're just working down this, this factory. And the reality is, I think it's much more of a circle now, and you have to have like the second order metrics to figure out where do I need to where do I need to get better quality? Where do I need to have better skills? Where do I need to have better rep awareness, and like figuring out that, hey, there's another person in this deal who could throw it off. So I think we're getting into
Yeah.
a world where, and this is kind of evidenced on the next slide, but like we can analyze these things at a much deeper level, and whether you're doing it yet or not, um, I think that it's going to be much simpler for organizations to you know to for lack of a better word, you don't have to have your managers or your director of sales be a statistician, in the way that we're moving here. You're going to have the ability to have, whether it's platforms like Ambition or a variety of different things, identify those worrisome trends, or suggest things for you to dig into. I think that's going to create a whole nother level of the opportunity to coach, which I'd love you guys comment on. Like, I think we're going to have much better managers, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, because they're going to have much better. They're going to have a much better kind of guide of where to be spending their time.
Yeah, I think AI, I mean, it absolutely is a game changer across the board, but especially for the frontline manager. And I don't think it gets as much attention as it deserves or as it will get, because if we can enable the frontline manager with real insights about what their team is doing, so even going back to our previous slide, we can start to look into what are our top performers doing across the board that we can extract and start to replicate and coach to, and where are people struggling that we really need to lean in. One of the things Gen AI is really good at is analyzing a ton of information quickly and providing that information. So every time we do a coaching workshop, we talk about behaviors versus judgments. And a lot of times managers get stuck in making judgments. Oh, they're not doing it very well. Well, let's back up again to what is the behavior behind it and what do we want them doing. Now I think we can analyze and have that information more or less at our fingertips, and be able to coach on real insights as opposed to just our opinion. So yeah, I think that's one area where it's really exciting to see how that's evolving and what it's going to do to that frontline manager role.
Well, if we're
Yeah.
going to spend the whole time on this slide, because I mean,
Yeah.
there's like a lot here. And I do, but
Yeah,
here's the
no, I
thing.
mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, no, go ahead if you want. I mean, we can keep it moving because I was going to ask you something about these in a second,
Then
but
go for it. I do have an opinion on AI. I will throw that in when you're not ready, uh, just to keep the ball moving down the field, so to speak.
ideally you just say it like in a a really controversial way that we could reshare on Reels later on or TikTok, depending on your preference.
Because hold on,
Um,
I'm gonna go check my TikTok. Yeah, okay, let's go.
well, look, one of the things I want to tie back to chat, get into this slide, and I think when we talk about call reluct, like let's be real tactical, call reluctance, reps who are unwilling to dial or uncomfortable dialing. I think one of the things that has been has been lost sometimes in these sales organizations is like why and the sellers understanding why we want them to do that. Like, what is the outcome of doing making a lot of stage two opportunities or making a bunch of calls or whatever. And I think that part of it is identifying and making sure they understand why we care about it. I think the other part is giving managers the easiest way of seeing that this is happening or not happening so that they can be the person to put that in context. Craig, when you think about like getting insights to managers, what do those managers need to know, and how do they position that so that the rep understands, the seller understands, here's why I'm supposed to be doing this, or here's why this is important to my success.
Yeah, so I think so now I will throw in my AI comment really quick. Well, there was longer than that, but I've been trying to shorten it while you were talking to think. But like, if I had just simple groupings of AI, there's like engagement AI, which I'm looking on the
Mm,
side, like co-pilots, that's like on-demand coaching, these sort of recommendations that go directly to the seller on how they engage. But then one of the really interesting things for me that I want to happen now is operational AI, or you would call it enablement AI, maybe, like, but like the ability to do, because like in many cases, look, I mean, I know we're pretending like, oh God, the old days when we used to coach so well. I mean, come on, man. Ray's had a business for like years, man, trying to help people. It's actually hard. Right. So like, without a standard way that we look at things, right? That was always one of the big issues is, A, time, right? B, a methodology by how we communicate with each other and standard, setting expectations. I mean, there was little things in coaching, just like how you structure the meeting that you have with
mhm.
reps, right? I'm sure Ray has to do a lot of that, right? And so like, when you think about AI or you think about today's ability to capture insights, like if you want things that you can do today that will make your life easier, one of those things is the ability to just get data, having it, because right now I don't think anybody should, like, AI is an enabler. There is the opportunity for it to generate insights that will give you ideas. But at the end of the day, like if we're really practical now, like now we can get insights in not, you don't even need it in real time. You just need to be able to have it. You need to be able to trust it. And there was this issue of all these different applications creating data that we needed in order to properly coach. So when you think about executive impact, for me, it was just hard before, especially as our business became really complex, to even get that information. And now what you have, like in number two, like uncovers gaps in coaching, training, and skills, that's unheard of. That was normally like a exhaustive human audit in order to figure that out. You could see here, these are the things that we can actually get. But even if you had just the ability to look at the data, the same data together across multiple applications, data sources, and have that conversation, because everyone asks me, well, what can I do today? Well, how about that? Because when you look
Yeah.
at what you're talking about here, right, we have that. That's one of the biggest issues. Is one of the reasons why you and I have had great conversations over the years. So anyway, when I think about these things, like, there's like you got to sort of, in my opinion, take baby steps. Like number one is, well, let's just agree on what data we want to have the conversation about, right? And that's you can see here you've got a daily threshold, right? Which, by the way, means on your insides, those weren't out. I mean, your outs weren't really outs, right? Those were actually here on the left side. We're going to watch those things where we're going to agree on what we look at together, and we're actually going to be able to look at it together. That's step one. That's a great step for the world. We can actually coach with that. And then the second one is like, okay, now let's see, now that, we have this infrastructure to be able to communicate, like what can the AI do to make us faster? The key for me is faster. Everything was hard. Like it would be like, I'd be at, up on stage talking about all these things. I was in the ivory tower, man. Like it was just so hard to get the data. And it was so hard for everyone to get on the same page. It's wild. Like I just give you this really, I'm going to do the example that Brian and I will make fun of in our next webinar, making fun of it. So I have 3 kids. 2 of them made all-stars, 1 didn't. Okay. And he comes to me, he's crying, right?
Are we doing baseball right now?
Hold on, listen.
Is this a baseball
but
podcast?
I led the league in home runs. And I'm like, that's true. He did. And it's like, but like, he didn't know that that wasn't the only thing they were looking for. And I hate to do that, but it was indicative of me. It's like, like he didn't know the things that we want to look at together. Right? He thought he was hitting a home run. He thought he was doing the right thing. So anyway, there you go. There's my real life example of something. That's like, and then now, but so before we would say, well, let's get in sync on what we're going to look at together. The issue was we couldn't look at it together. And now we can. And so it's like, for me, that's sort of step 1 as I look at this. And then step 2 is we're going to start to use this thing to play with it, to get prescriptive recommendations that enable people today. Nothing replaces coaching. Things can just make us coach better.
I want to wrap. Yeah. Or go ahead, Ray. You can add to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna. To me, the super exciting thing, and we've delivered hundreds and hundreds of manager workshops over the years, and trained thousands of managers. And one of the questions we always get from the revenue leader is, well, how do I know if this is working? Yeah. Right? And are they actually doing it? And I'll share a story, and this was, pre-AI, we didn't even really think that way. CEO of a Fortune 500 company sat in on our workshop. He said, I'm so excited about this. I want to see your coaching plans. I want you to send me your coaching visits. And he collected them, or had somebody collect them in a binder, and he went through them and he aggregated what they were coaching on. And I'm like, one, really good sponsorship, right? One of the best programs we've done, because guess what? They knew it was, and they leaned in on it, and they're like, oh, I guess we should coach. But now we can do that literally in real time, and we can aggregate that. So that point about uncovering gaps in coaching, training, and skills, now we have the lens to look and do that, to say, oh, you know what? Everybody's coaching on negotiation. Why is that an issue right now? What do we need to do to get ahead of that? Maybe we should do some refresher training, or have a seminar on that particular topic. So yeah, I think the kind of insights, and now the focus that we can get for kind of just-in-time training changes the game pretty significantly.
But we have to, one thing we have to acknowledge, so that's a group that coaches. But like, if you really look, what if I had to make a header on this, it's like, we can finally coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like, to me, the big message I see when I hear you talk, you work with a guy like Ray who's helped you sort of create the culture of coaching and the methodology to go do that. And you work with a guy like Brian to be able to automate it and make it faster and be able to deliver. But like, for me, guys, like, when we take the first number, which, by the way, that, the missing the number, we still missed the number a lot before, right?
Totally.
And like, we always acknowledge the coaching problem. And so like, for me, what I see here is, well, we can coach now. You know what I mean? And we can bring it, so when I hear what Ray's describing, I'm like, everyone should just take that in and be like, I want to be like that. You know what I mean? I want to be like that. Because in the vast majority of cases, and even when people coach, guys, I mean, this is why, both of you guys exist, is even when they coach, the coaching was broken. That's why I brought up that cheesy Little League example. Like, to me, when I think of this is like these are like 3 specific examples, but they're actually sort of a platform for thinking about like how you can actually coach right now and properly do it.
When you ask frontline managers if they coach their team, across the board, they're gonna, I coach all the time. What do you mean?
100%. That's right.
And what are they doing? They're telling them how to do it the way they did it, right? Or they're telling them to do things differently, or they're giving them 8 things to do differently based on the call recording. And that's not coaching, right? That's not going to create change that you're looking for and doesn't allow them to focus. So I think you're absolutely right, Craig. You know, good coaching is different than just, oh yeah, I talk to them in the hallway, or, you know, I call them up after the call and I tell them what I think. That's not coaching.
Woody just made a great reference, and
Perfect,
I
Woody.
wanted to call out Ray. You kind of beat me there, and I think you said it much more eloquently than I would have. But and we'll talk about this a little bit in the upcoming slides. But like the reality, and I don't want to like throw any of your organizations or us under the bus. I guess I've been this person too. But like most of the managers who are the coaches in our organizations who are going to drive the process, the sales playbook, the methodology, whatever, to the field, that was like the best seller 12 months ago, or like the best sales rep 4 years ago. And now they manage a team of, I mean, well, the visibility we have is that managers are managing almost 2x the number of people they did a few years ago. Like because of remote, because of whatever, we've just massively inflated the size of teams to about 10 to 12 people per manager. So you've got a person who has almost no, no real training in how to manage to like, Craig's point, like that's why Ray exists. Like these people need frameworks, they need process, they need content of what to talk about and how to identify the problems. And they have, in many cases, none of it. They were a great seller for whatever reason. And they're trying to do that across 10 people with super limited time, in many cases, very limited resources and data and awareness. And so I think net, there's a lot of ways to do it better. Let's talk about some of those and how we can be adaptable, because this is the tension that I think we're going to get to this an image that I think really is close to what Woody was talking about in a second. But like, while we're creating that coaching culture, whether you have Ray come in or whether you have some other group or whether you do it yourselves, creating that central agreement. Hey, here's what we're going to go do. Here's how we're going to go hit our goal. Can we talk a little bit about the tension of committing, creating a goal, but then also being flexible as things change? I'm sure, Ray, you've seen this in a bunch of situations at your customers and clients over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to separate, and as Craig said, create that coaching culture of what does good coaching look like. And it is different. It's different than deal coaching, and it's different than just telling them how to do it differently. So, I think we're going to go there, but we need to really rethink or think about how we want coaching to be executed in the organization. And, can you go back to that slide just for a sec?
Yep.
So this is a core concept that we talk about when we kick off our coaching programs, which is, this is not us doing it to them, or as we say, directing, or Craig, you mentioned beating up the forecast. We need to make coaching collaborative. It needs to be something we do with our reps because we want them to buy into the outcome. And if we tell them, especially, these days, we tell them, hey, these are the 5 things you're doing wrong. They're going to figure 5 reasons why you're incorrect. That's not true. I tried it that way. They're pushing back already versus, well, let's lean in on those couple of things based on the insights that will help you improve your performance. How do we get there? And what can I do as a manager? And then we need to be flexible and adapt that. And so, we need to start with that mindset of what good coaching looks like before we get into, okay, what are we going to coach them on and how are they actually going to execute?
You saying that everyone's going to come up with those, those excuses or those reasons why is, I think this is super powerful, and I think this can be taken by revenue leaders right now and go create that, that co-create that plan between the manager and the rep. Because to bring it back to Craig, I coach a little league all-star team, and every kid wants to tell me why they can throw sidearm, and it's going to be great when they throw sidearm. They're like, bro, you're not this guy. You're not a 28-year-old guy in the majors. So you got to do it. You got to do it the way that we agree is going to be successful, or we think will be most successful, and then we can adapt from there. To your point, Ray.
Okay, I have to give my sports analogy just since we're on that page, but I coached my son's soccer team for about 10 years. And when these guys were young, like, I'm talking 10, 11 years old, at one point I sat down and I'm like, and we just got, shellacked, right? So after the game, and I'm like, hey guys, what do you think we should do differently? And it changed the whole tenure of that season, right? They were really good at coming up with, oh, we probably, and first I said, hey, what did you like? Or, what do we want to continue doing? What should we think about going forward? And it was really insightful. And guess what? They bought in and they own the outcome. And it actually kind of changed the way that we approach the game. So anyway, collaborative coaching, I think, is a key there. Had to get my
Well,
sports
that
more.
I think that's great. I mean, I think it leads right into this, which is, I mean, gosh, if you're trying to explain baseball, soccer, whatever, your deal cycle to someone, you have to have these recurring cycles of a little bit at a time, breaking the big thing into the smaller, digestible, bite-size, near-term objectives that can be practiced, that can be dissected in a call coaching or a pipeline review or a deal review. Um, and Woody was talking about this before, and I'd love to get you guys, your insights on this. But like, how do we adapt in this relationship between the manager and the rep as we're trying to drive them to success or lead them, co-lead them to success? How do we break these into things that it's not, hey man, I hope to see this was it. What this was our world 6 years ago. I care about quota on an annual basis. I'm gonna check in midpoint and see how we're doing. Now we have lots of steps we can do along the way. How do we do that in a way that we can constantly recalculate our map, make sure that we're swimming to the right spot versus end up at the end of the year and we're way off pace or way off the direction. Rhett or Craig, I'll kick to you first.
Um, I just want to make sure on time that I don't Rosenberg this, but like, it feels like there's adaptability, like in your previous slide, if you think about it, there's adaptability in the front, which is like what we're doing as an organization, because that we are in like massive agility.
Constant. Yep.
Then you take that and co-create with the reps, and then you have to adapt and adjust after that. So there's like this, like if you take like the change management that's happening today and on a frequent basis is like, the perfect setup for this, right? Which is like, there's a lot, right? We have to change who we're going after, what we say to them, etc., constantly, and what we're selling, how we're selling it, deal size, whatever, right? And then we have to work with the reps to go come up with a plan together, and then, like you guys have said, adapt. I think the key to this slide for me is that oftentimes people try to take on everything with a broad brush, when in reality, we got to tackle things. So I think Ray gave an example before about like particular areas in the sales cycle where we're overcoaching, right? And I would say, it's like, wow, everyone's doing negotiation. And like, we probably, if we had tracked that, we would look and say, hey, like, where is the new gap, and what do we need to go do, and what do we need to go do together? And let's break that down and solve it. Right. So like if you were, if we were looking at a sales cycle, I mean, I've done this a million times where I've gone in and go, well, like, let's just focus, like, for example, giving a demo is a skill in tech, right? We often say, here's the big methodology, go do that. It's like, no, the demo is a skill, right? How many you do, how well you do, how many come out. And like, when I think of these things, it's like, well, like, is that the area like we want to focus on, right? And like we want to work on, tracking after that? Well, for a lot of you, by the way, yes. But like,
So about the choke points, the conversion
right,
points.
we got to break that thing down and work on things. And that's like when all of us joking in your chat room, it's like, we're just beating on forecasts. We're like, thinking big thing. Can you go get more pipeline instead of like, why isn't pipeline happening? Can we take a chunk of this, look at this together, and decide on an area that we can go train you on, coach you on, and then fix. And by doing that and bringing it down to that level, then you can actually have a real change in the effectiveness of the reps. So that's what I think about when I see this slide.
Yeah.
And I think Woody's calling that out. I don't want to I didn't want to interrupt you, Ray, but like, you know, those things have to happen. They can't all happen on the same call, Craig. Like you're saying, like it has to be like an intentional, like, hey, we're going to look at this thing, or we're going to coach on this skill, or we're going to coach on this piece of the process. Um, and I think when you get that, you get less surprises, right? Like you're digging into a thing, you're doing it with consistency, and you're able to see around those corners, or maybe not have the ability to be snuck up on. I'm going to try to get us to talent because I think that was
Yeah.
a really common. It came up multiple times in our chat earlier, and I know I think everyone's dealing with a variety of challenges around talent, um, and I thought it was fascinating how the numbers here on the CEOs that are, you know, skeptical of their talent today, skeptical of, you know, really the efficacy of their talent and their ability to, you know, learn the right skills, know the right skills, but also allocate their time correctly. Um, Ray, like walk us through this. These are data you guys provided. This was fascinating to me.
Yeah, so we do the CEO survey every quarter, and I'll tell you the trend has not changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. The left side is definitely more strategy and ops focused, but on the right, on that commercial talent, to me, what really jumps out is we have a disconnect right before between where the CEO thinks we need to be and where we actually are, where they perceive we are. And when we look at a talent strategy, it's, do we have the right people? Are they in the right roles? Do they have the right skills, and are they allocating their time appropriately? And all of those are levers that we can pull to improve productivity. But in this case, we have gaps across the board, and what we're talking about today is really coaching. We can look at, that's a skill. Are we coaching the right skills? Do we know what those skills are? And really, are they spending their time? Are they going about their day appropriately? Those are coachable priorities we should really lean in on. The middle two are probably a little bit more, org alignment, and there's a bigger assessment to take a look at. But I think it's really important for us to look at those gaps and then figure out how we can change them, because I'll tell you, that's going to improve performance a lot more than, hey, we're going to add X number of FTEs and they're going to be this revenue engine and we're going to ramp them up. It's like, well, wait, let's look at the existing org. How can we, level up and improve that performance? And coaching is a key attribute for that.
Absolutely. I appreciate what you're saying. Well, those are coachable. Those are teachable skills, right? And like maybe we've lost some of the diligence or the I don't know, the ability, like even the simple example once again of like the call reluctance. But it's like, I remember getting into the sales world as a 22-year-old, and it was like you had a piece of paper on the side of your on my desk at least, where it's like I know from 8 to 10:30 I'm gonna be making calls, and from 10:30 to noon I'm gonna do this thing, and like just this simple stuff that I don't know what has happened, and it's really interesting that is a massive change or a massive decrease in the confidence from the CEOs. I'm gonna talk about the impact, and once again, this is an SPI stat. I'd like both you guys to comment on, but like, uh, Ray, walk us through the impact or the effectiveness of coaching and how it works in these organizations that have a good coaching system, a good coaching culture.
Yeah, and I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone in terms of the correlation, but this was a survey we did with Selling Power a few years ago. And we looked at the performance of the sales orgs. We looked at their attainment of quota, and those that were above 75% of quota, we said, all right, those are high impact organizations. They're doing something right, or they're setting quota too low, but let's set that aside. But they're achieving some excellence. What are they doing differently? And so on the right-hand side, what was really compelling is they were coaching more. So at least 65% of their managers were coaching 20% of the time, 1 day a week, right? But we think about allocating that across our team. And that's, we're talking about, structured or more formal coaching where they're actually following a process, they have outcomes, we're tracking it. It's something like, we're talking about here using something like ambition or, a paper form, doesn't matter. But there was a very strong correlation, and there was also a strong correlation that they were investing in training and enabling their managers, and they had a common coaching language. And so I think that pulls through when we look at the sales performance. Is now the managers have that, basis to be able to enable and coach their teams. And when we get those insights, it becomes even more powerful. So yeah, just to say that more coaching does correlate to stronger performance. How do we get the organization up to that level and have them doing it more or less consistently, which is what we're going to talk about next, I think.
Yeah, Craig, you've mentioned a couple times having that framework or that common, that common theme, common language to speak on. I think it's interesting that this says the same thing. Like, if you don't have the consistency and the lingua franca to everyone knows the same process, everyone knows what we're doing. Like, you just got 20, 30, 100 managers doing, shooting from the hip, making it up as they go. And you can't drive that performance across the org.
Yes. And thank you for
Concur.
using lingua franca. That was awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, those things all go together. I mean, if you coach 20% of the time, but you don't have a common coaching language, the effectiveness of the coaching is not as good. So I'm just sitting there floored on the 75% of people hitting their number.
Like, give me that company.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll wrap it up. I know we're getting close on time, and I appreciate everyone sticking to the end. I think we got into this a little bit with kind of the preview on AI, but the opportunity to automate the awareness and the insights, and then take those insights and act upon them and use them for the betterment of our reps, the betterment of our the more likelihood of our reps being successful, I think is at an all-time best over the next couple quarters. Craig, you called it out earlier, and I just want to jump back to it really quickly. There's a ton of energy and a ton of, frankly, noise about how do we automate getting in touch with a prospect, how do we automate getting in touch with a customer, and poking them. But I think a huge opportunity is on gleaning what can we do better as far as coaching the rep. Who can we focus on, who needs help, because that all can be captured and can be analyzed, and then the manager can act upon it. What are you seeing, or how can organizations really leverage that to get better every week, every month, whatever their cadence is?
Yeah, by the way, I'll mention there is a word here like practice. Practice has been a missing piece of training and coaching, like at scale, and the ability to actually take a recommendation or develop a skill and have them focus on practice as one of the things we go do with each other. I just like the word practice. It makes it practice. But but yeah, look, I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, like uh with AI or with technology, I mean, look, you can do it if you want to, do like some real heavy auditing, like we can, but like with tech now, we can analyze and look for the things that you actually need to work on. You gave the right example. It's like, look, I loved the era of sales engagement platforms. It really fueled that run at that time in SaaS in particular was like, we just were able to ramp volume, right? But that became the only thing we were able to look at. So we spent all our time there. And it's like, whereas like now, we've seen, I mean, obviously that's the limit, but like we have to be able to, it was in your ins and outs. Like we're gonna have to figure out how we win deals, right? And so like where do we go? How do we turn that into a micro sort of coaching loop with the rep? And like we do now, we have the ability to go look at that and then look at it the next day, because even folks that could look at it, they couldn't look at what happened the next day. They had to wait.
Yep.
And so we can set these things up. That's, to me, like when we think about what we can do today, that is a real win. The other thing is, look, guys, like, I mean, we're looking at people missing their number, right? And that's, if, by the way, it's totally, I hate to say it, it is understandable. Right now we're out, we got to readjust now. We got to start to move that number up. right? And one of the big things we learned was we had in tech heady times in 2021, 2022, right? Where we were just selling without, we just were able to give up a lot of our fundamentals because it just worked.
Mhm.
Now you have to be able to look at everything and figure out how we win deals in a really scrutinous way. And the AI and automation, the ability to go do that allows you to go do that, which to me is a really good combination of things going forward so that we can improve rep performance. So that's how I think about it.
I
Yeah,
love
I think
that. Ray, go ahead. I'd love for you to wrap us up here.
yeah, you knew I was going to have a comment, but to me, what's super exciting with all of the kind of concepts we've talked about is being able to put it in place through platforms. I mean, like Ambition, right? Now we can see if they're coaching,
Yeah.
we can see what they're coaching on, we can gather insights from that. And I'll throw one out on the practice, Craig, because I think you're spot on. But if people haven't played around with some of the AI enabled video role playing, I mean, it is a
Mhm.
game changer to be able to interact with a persona of your choosing who knows about what you're trying to go after. So now even that part gets easier for the coach or manager to say, hey, practice this and then send me one of your good examples and then let's talk about it. I don't think the role of the manager coach ever goes away. We're not going to just automate that, but now we can do it at scale and we can do it more effectively because we're coaching on the right things and we're giving them the opportunity to practice and improve on their own. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about the direction, and I think these types of technologies help to enable all of that.
Well, that was exactly right. I could not have wrapped it up better myself, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone out there, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate folks sticking around the whole time and checking this out later. I think these are immediately applicable things that your organization can check out tomorrow. Even like Craig said, if you're doing it via audit or you're doing it in the more manual way, it can be done. And I think the focus on micro skills, continually looking at those conversion and choke points, and then practicing against how do we get better. Ideally, with that common language and common methodology, is something you can take from this. To the guests or to my co-hosts and guests, Ray and Craig, thank you guys so much for joining us. Great to speak with you guys. And tell folks where they can find you, Craig, and then Ray, real quick.
By the way, I thank you because I forgot to mention I have a podcast, The Transaction. That's where I want you to follow me. So come
Yeah,
check.
let's go. Hey, thank you. Go check it out, The Transaction. And Ray?
Yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn, Ray Makela, and put my email in the chat here as well. And we have a host of resources on the SBI Growth website, and then SRG, which is a subset underneath that. But hundreds and hundreds of sales blogs, lots of content. We have a book called The High Impact Sales Manager. Hit me up. I'm happy to provide a copy of that. And yeah, I'd love to keep the conversation going.
Thank you all. Everyone have a great afternoon or morning wherever you are. And Ray, Craig, thanks guys so much. Appreciate it.
Great. Enjoy.